I heard 3 polite knocks and a too bright "Mom?" before the ocean answered back. Mother's Day, and after years of eating alone, my new beach house had company. I opened the door to my children, and the salt wind blew their perfume and plans straight into my hallway. Ben stood on the cedar steps with a bakery box, smile polished, tie loosened like he'd run kindness on a schedule. Sophie hovered behind him with sunglasses like armor and a weekender bag riding her shoulder. Their sedan idled in my gravel drive, trunk gaping just enough to show 2 suitcases upright like soldiers who had already decided to stay. "Happy Mother's Day," Ben said, kissing my cheek a beat late. "We were in the area." "You live inland," I said, moving aside. "In the area of the ocean?" Sophie laughed without warmth. "Traffic was nothing. Mom, this place." "Shoes by the bench," I said. The floors were new, lemon oil still in the grain. She slipped off her heels, but not before one stiletto stamped a crescent in the plank. They stepped in, looking everywhere at once. My brass pendants. Open shelving. A straight shot of horizon through the slider. Ben put the bakery box on the quartz. "DeLuca's cannoli," he announced. "Your favorite." "My favorite is their almond horns," I said. Sophie lifted her phone, catching angles like instinct. She hesitated over the video button, then set the phone face down. "You did this, Mom. Alone. With the money from the condo your father sold," I said. "My share. And other savings." Ben paced and cataloged like a realtor. "Great bones. That deck sings bookings." "Bookings," I repeated. "For your friends," Sophie said, shooting him a look. "Like guest weekends." I clicked on the kettle. On the counter sat the manila packet with my deed and closing statement. I slid it under the cutting board with 3 fingers. The email notification on my phone still glowed. Closing statement. Paid. Timestamp. May 7th, 3:42 p.m. I set the phone face down beside the sink. "How'd you find it?" I asked. "Carmen's post," Sophie said. "She tagged you." The slider whooshed when Ben nudged it open. Warm air tilted the curtains. "You did all this on your pension?" he asked. The word came out dressed like suspicion. "I did this because I could," I said, "and because I was tired of eating rotisserie chicken alone every May while you texted hearts at 8 p.m. Ben winced, human for a blink. "We're here now." The kettle clicked. I set cups on a tray, the little floral ones with hairline cracks only sunlight notices. Sophie perched on a stool like a diner kid, elbows up, chin in hands. "Number of bedrooms?" she asked, pretend casual. 2 and a study. Cozy, quiet. Enough. Mine. She did quick math behind her eyes. "Families like 3. Still, premium view." "We're not selling," I said. No, Ben jumped. "Calendar sellout. Demand. It's an expression." I poured, watched the blue-black bloom. Outside, a gull heckled a kid with a red kite. The bell at the inlet clanged slow and certain. Sophie unboxed the cannoli with perfect symmetry, already framing a shot that she hadn't technically taken. "What brought you today?" I asked. "Mother's Day." They chorused, too fast. Their suitcases hummed from the driveway like a subtext I could hear. We stepped onto the deck. "Careful," I said. "Paint." The railing was still tacky from yesterday's second coat. The water smelled like salt and green. Ben drummed the rail with his fingers, testing. "I think we should talk logistics," he said. "Of? Managing the place?" Sophie said. "It's a lot for one person. I can handle a lot, of course." Ben smiled, palms up. "We'll help. Maybe block some summer weekends. Manage guests if you're tired. Monetize it so you're not overextended." "Overextended?" I tasted the word. "That's all," Sophie said. Her phone pinged. A preview bubble flashed. "Luca. Got the deck shots?" She thumbed it away so fast you'd miss it if you weren't the kind of woman who learned to see small things in quiet rooms. Inside again, I moved the kettle. The deed packet had shifted 1/2 inch, magnet clip crooked. I pushed it farther under the board. Down the hall, the guest room door now stood fully open, my quilt folded neat as a promise. The trunk fob chirped outside, cheerful and telling. "We could do a housewarming," Ben said. Make this a brand. Beach days with Nana. No socials, I said. Not for this. Copy, he said, recalibrating. Then just family. We'll get you a contractor. Fix punch list stuff this week. Punch list, I echoed. You always taught us to be thorough, Sophie offered. Like the holiday bins. Thanksgiving candles. Thanksgiving? Linens? Do not stack. I smiled despite myself. I remember. Ben tried again, softer. We're proud of you, Ma. This is amazing. We just want to make sure it's safe. The contract, no sketchy clauses? My attorney marked it up. It's buttoned. He looked toward the counter anyway. Even when people pretend not to, their eyes go where they're already walking in their heads. I rinsed the cups and set a fresh pot for clam linguine. Trips closes at 5, I said. If you were planning steaks. It's 4:15, Ben said. Checks watch. We can make it. Keys? He asked. I have everything I need. Silence turned bright and small. Sophie tapped her nail on porcelain, a neat click. Here's what we're going to do, I said finally. You can stay for dinner. After, you'll head home. We'll talk again Tuesday at noon here and we'll put your questions on paper. Next week? Ben blinked. I keep a schedule. I'm old, not chaotic. Something real cracked in Sophie's laugh. Okay, Mom. And shoes stay at the bench. The deck's off limits until the paint cures. No photos without asking. No one opens drawers unless you're getting cutlery. Boundaries, Ben said, studying me like I had changed shape. Copy that. We ate a cannoli before the sugar went damp. Powdered sugar dusted Ben's lip. They talked about traffic, a coffee place on the highway, a podcast I don't listen to. I let the words layer while the ocean breathed. I set the stove timer for 20 minutes. Not for pasta, yet for me. 20 to be polite, to be the mother they expected. Then I would take my keys from the hook, walk to the door, and decide how much of my Sunday belonged to anyone else. More tea? I asked. If we're going to Trips, Ben said. It's 4:22, I said. I know how long things take. He stood, remembered his shoes. Sophie wiped the counter with a napkin, collecting crumbs the size of salt. Thank you, she said. For letting us in, I said. The tide wasn't high yet, but it was coming. The door chime of their trunk sounded bright as a bell. I breathed lemon and salt and sugar. I counted backward from 20. At 10, I was done being surprised. At 5, I knew exactly what I would say next. At 1, I turned toward the doorway, steady as the tide. I wasn't always the woman counting down from 20 in a kitchen that smells like lemon oil and Tide. For most of my life, Mother's Day meant paper crowns, lilies, and sticky hands holding mine in a hot parking lot. Ben brought clover bouquets with roots still attached. Sophie taped a crayon menu to the fridge and spelled syrup like a secret. I kept notes in a dented tea tin. The hinge squeaks, making memories sound alive. Their father, Ray, was charm with a shadow. He could sell a winter coat to July. Insurance, condos, ideas. He moved them all with the same easy grin. When he wasn't promising someone else a life, he promised us one. I worked nights at St. Anselm's on the cardiac floor. I was good with the scared and the stubborn. I could get an old man to breathe slow and a young one to unclench his jaw. The job paid steady and taught me patience. We never had much, but I could stretch fabric and soup. I mended hems at the kitchen table and wore a thimble dent on my finger. I watered one geranium because it bloomed like it owed me. On paydays, I bought one almond horn from DeLuca's. We split it 3 ways and called it Festival. We had Festival when the car passed inspection. We had Festival when a bill got corrected. Festival tasted like sugar and relief and a private joke. I keep the old check registers in a shoebox under a quilt. Orthodontics 75. Used tires 180. School trip 35. The handwriting leans right because I was always rushing before the bath cooled or the bus came. My favorite line was kids' savings, 25 each. Sometimes it was 10. Sometimes it was a promise to double it next month. Ben learned to drive in the church lot. Lurch, stop, laugh. Sophie could thread a needle at 9. Ray had a way of showing up for photographs. Father-daughter dance? He appeared with a boutonniere someone owed him. He danced with Sophie and smelled like bourbon and promises. He taught Ben a curveball on a day he had forgotten 2 pickups in a row. I used to excuse it. He's trying, I'd say. He loves them. He's working. The truth was simpler. He liked the show more than the work. I liked the work because it kept us fed. There were good years, bright as coins. We lit cheap fireworks on the cul-de-sac. One 4th of July, the sky stitched itself with light. We all looked new for a minute. Birthdays ran on casseroles and borrowed chairs. In summer, we drove to the public beach with bologna sandwiches and a cooler that shed blue ice like snow. Sophie stood at the lip of the surf and said, "One day we'll live where the water talks." Ben dug moats and called it engineering. Mother's Day changed after the divorce. First it was quiet. Then it was a door slamming. The custody schedule did not care about the dates that mattered to me. Some years I had the Sunday. Some years I had the Monday after and a brave bouquet. As teenagers, the tug-of-war got ugly. Ray took them to brunch with mimosa fountains and posted proof. I got silence and a photo at 8:07 p.m. I looked at the timestamp and put the phone down. I made myself dinner anyway. The year Ben needed a cosign for a used Toyota, I said yes. I brought a buttered roll because he forgets to eat when he's stressed. He made payments for a while. When he stopped, the envelopes came to me. I paid them like I have paid everything since footy pajamas. Steady. On time. No applause. I filed the receipts in a folder labeled Auto, Ben. The folder grew fat. When he called later with a promotion, I cried in my parked car and said I was proud. Sophie moved in with a man who spoke in plans. Luca designed outdoor kitchens and used words like portfolio and leveraging. His smile lived in photographs. His laugh did not. At Thanksgiving, he asked who owned my condo. The bank and me, I said. He nodded like that was quaint. After dessert, he arranged leftovers like a board and labeled containers with dates. He photographed the tidy stack. Organization, he said, is a mindset. I thought about how a label is not the same as love. Ray sold our condo after the mortgage was paid. He had refinanced it twice during our marriage. He called it strategy. We had put both names on the deed, back when we believed wine could fix a ceiling leak if we drank it under the drip. He sold fast to a young couple with a baby who threw her pacifier like an athlete. I got my legal half because my name was on the paper. I learned the hard way that signatures beat speeches. The beach house was not impulse. I kept a spiral notebook of prices. I crossed out towns that flood. I starred streets that stay quiet at night. I asked the closing attorney, Marcy, for hard answers. Flood history, easement lines, crawl space moisture, the last septic service. I hired an inspector with a backbone. When his summary said adequate, I bought a second inspection. The second report told the truth I needed. I passed on 2 places and kept looking. I closed on a Wednesday. The clerk slid the deed across the desk. Something clicked in my ribs like a hinge saying yes. I drove to the shore and walked the waterline until my ankles went numb. I ate a fish sandwich standing up because there was nowhere to sit. I taped the first grocery receipt inside a cabinet. I wanted the house to have bones of truth. Receipt number 1. May 7th. 2:41 p.m. $143.82. I did not invite anyone right away. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I woke to a gull arguing with the dawn like an old relative. I painted 2 rooms myself. I hired local for the rest. I learned the hardware guy's name and the tide chart's moods. On day 9, I photographed the stove timer because it looked like a smile. I sent it only to Carmen, a friend from nursing school who knows everything and tells no one. "I can hear you breathing," she said when she visited. "That's the point," I said. We ate crackers and laughed about the years we split a granola bar on a double shift. She took 1 photo of the sunset and asked if she could post. "Tag me if you must," I said, "and don't say where." She kept it vague. It turned out vague is still a map if someone is looking. Later, she showed me the comments. Hearts, waves, proud of you. I turned my phone face down and let the bell at the inlet count the light. The first Sunday I spent there, I made pancakes for one. I burned the first batch because I stared too long at the horizon. I washed the pan and started over. I walked the beach with a trash bag and paid rent to the sea with other people's bottle caps. I thought, this is how the rest of my life will sound. The ocean breathed. My phone buzzed. Ben wrote, "You free this weekend? Need to talk contracts." I folded towels. I wrote back later, after the tide turned. So when the 3 polite knocks came on Mother's Day and my children stepped through the door with sugar and plans, they met more than fresh paint. They met years of grocery slips, check registers, and small, stubborn promises kept without witnesses. I did not buy the house to make me brave. I bought it to make me clear. Clarity, I've learned, has a sound. It sounds like surf on pilings and a woman saying yes or no without flinching. It sounds like me. The pasta timer hit 0, and I let it ring twice before I touched it. Ben lingered on the deck, pretending the horizon needed inspection. Sophie stood in my kitchen like a stylist correcting a set that refused her mood board. "Smells amazing," she said, peeking into the pot. "It's honest food," I said. "Honesty tends to smell like garlic." Her phone buzzed face down. The screen flashed for half a second. Luca. "Ita?" I stirred the linguine and pretended I hadn't read it. Ben slid the door shut. "We'll run to Trips after," he said. "Grab steaks. Our grill's propane," I said. "And after suggest you're staying. Just for a bit. We can help assemble that patio box," he added, tapping the unopened carton by the slider. "I was waiting on the right back," I said. "Mine." We ate at the small round table. Ben stacked his plate like he remembered hunger. Sophie photographed the bowl and the lemon slice I'd set out without thinking. Small things. Alone, they don't make a case. Together, they hum. After dinner, Sophie carried plates. Ben insisted on the trash. He lifted the lid and paused half a beat too long. His eyes drifted to the manila packet under my cutting board. "Nothing obvious. Not yet. Do you have a toolbox?" he asked. "Loose hinge in the guest room." "I have a toolbox," I said. "And hinges can wait." Sophie wandered down the hall on soft feet meant to seem aimless. "I'll just peek," she called. I followed. She paused at the guest room doorway, head tilted at the quilt folded neat as a promise. Her eyes tracked outlet placement, window light, closet depth. Back in the kitchen, Ben braced his elbows and aimed for casual. "If you ever did rent, only if you'd need upgrades. Smart lock. Camera by the driveway." "Boundaries," I said. "Sure," he said, but his hand found the tape measure like habit. He measured the slider width with a whir and a click. "Just curious." "Curiosity is beautiful," I said. Pointed curiosity is a tool. The doorbell chimed at 4:27 p.m. Sophie startled. Ben didn't breathe. I opened the door. A young man in a polo stood with a clipboard and a tidy van logoed at the curb. "Afternoon. Luca sent me to give an estimate on deck lights and outdoor cameras." "We're not doing that," I said. "But you made the trip take a cannoli." He said owner approved," the man added. He checked his board. 2 floodlights, dimmers, driveway cam. Install Tuesday 12 noon. Contact Sophie. Access code TK0624. Tell Luca the owner rescinds, I said. "No work without a signed contract." He nodded and left. The engine backed into quiet like nothing had happened. But something had. A small tell put on a uniform and knocked with my daughter's name. Ben exhaled. "We were thinking safety. People scope everything," I said. "Strangers do less damage than loved ones with ideas." "We overstepped," Sophie said. "Luca's pushy. He thinks ahead." "He should think again," I said. "Trips?" I offered. "Let's go." Ben answered too fast. "I'll join you," I said. "Need my list." In the kitchen, I opened the junk drawer for a pen and found 3 glossy printouts, folded once. They hid under rubber bands and an old tape measure like someone believed plain sight equals permission. The top page was a marketing sheet mocked with stock photos that matched my rooms. Sea Glass Cottage, new. Walk to beach. 2 bedrooms plus study. Bullets. Deck just refinished. Chef's kitchen. A brand logo I didn't recognize sat in the corner. The second page, a calendar grid. June blocks shaded pale blue. Key, hold. The third page, a vendor list. Cleaning, Sophie, temp. Maintenance, Ben, temp. Photography, Luca. My name did not appear. My house did. I looked at the stove clock, 4:51 p.m. I slid the pages back, wrote a short list, milk, dish soap, tucked it into my pocket, and walked out with my keys. We drove separately. In Tripp's lot, I parked where I could leave. Inside, I bought steaks. At the corkboard, a fresh flyer announced, Seaglass Cottage, opening June, DM for family rate. The thumbnail photo was my deckline, my sky. I tore the little tab that said DM and folded it into my wallet. I checked my register slip. Trips 5:32 p.m., 2 ribeyes and daisies. I snapped a photo of the flyer with the wall clock in frame, 5:36 p.m., and texted the image to myself for a clean timestamp. I did not call. Back at the house, we said nothing while we salted steaks. Ben tried a gull joke. Sophie asked if I liked the daisies. I told her I bought them myself. After dinner, they talked practicality. We'll make a spreadsheet, Ben said. It helps me see the angles. I see fine, I said. When the sky went cotton blue, I walked them to the driveway. Suitcases still stood upright, hopeful as ever. Tuesday, Sophie asked. Noon? Noon, I said. No surprises. They left. The engine notes faded. The other sound, the one inside, grew louder. Suspicion took on edges. I opened my spiral notebook to a fresh page and wrote, Sunday, Mother's Day. Under it, I listed times in nurse's chart fashion. 4:27, installer at door. 4:51, flyers found. 32, trips receipt. I received a corkboard photo. Evidence likes order. Order keeps feelings from pretending to be facts. I washed the pan, then opened the cedar box that holds the papers you don't misplace. I laid out my deed, the survey, the insurance binder with Marcy's yellow flags. I took my phone. Time, 7:18 p.m. I scrolled to Ben's text, Wednesday, 2:04 p.m. You free this weekend? Need to talk contracts. Then Sophie's, Thursday, 9:11 p.m. Random, what's your Wi-Fi name? On my router card, I'd written it for myself. Seaglass 5G, password in my own loops. I opened Sophie's contact info. Shared albums. One new folder, created Saturday at 11:32 a.m. Beach ideas. Cover image, my deck railing, still wet, 12 items. I didn't open them. I photographed the screen with my sticky printer and peeled out a receipt thin strip with a timestamp, 7:23 p.m. I slid it beside my deed. Then I returned to the junk drawer and retrieved the 3 glossy printouts. Evidence doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits under rubber bands for the right eyes. I placed them into a clear sleeve and labeled it with my neat nurse hand. House, unauthorized plans. One more stone in my shoe. I went to the bench by the door where the shoes live and lifted Sophie's tote because I am still a mother and sometimes mothers check. I didn't rummage. I looked at what the bag was willing to give. In the outer pocket, a folded half sheet peered out. It was an owner authorization for short-term rental management, logoed to the same brand, blanks for name, address, payout schedule. The date line held June 1st. The signature line was empty, but someone had typed my name beneath it in a font nobody in this family uses. In the margin, a square printed note. Review WM Tuesday, get wet signature. I set the notebook beside the deed and breathed, slow and even again. The stone turned into ground. Tuesday came bright. I set 3 cups on the counter, a legal pad by the stove, and the sleeve labeled house. Unauthorized plans in the middle of the island. The doorbell rang at 11:58. Ben walked in with his let's be reasonable smile. Sophie followed. Luca came last, camera bag slung, eyes inventorying. Right on time, I said. We brought iced coffee, Sophie chirped, setting a carrier on the island. Keep it casual? Formality keeps memories tidy, I said, and nudged the sleeve toward them. Ben raised both hands. We all want the same thing. You comfortable, safe, not overextended. No pressure, Sophie unfolded a calendar. June boxes were shaded pale blue. Just soft holds, she said. Placeholders. Placeholders who pay? I asked. No commitments, Ben said. Exploratory. You scheduled an installer Sunday at 4:27, I said. He knocked, clipboard ready. He said Luca approved. Luca's smile thinned. Vendors pencil things to reserve a slot. If the owner says no, we cancel. The owner did, I said. At the door. Sophie tried a light laugh. Miscommunication. He jumped the gun. You also printed marketing sheets and a flyer, I said. Sea Glass Cottage, opening June. Trips corkboard, 5:36 p.m. I slid my photo across. The wall clock sat in frame. Ben's jaw worked. Testing language. No address? Harmless? Harmless would be asking first, I said. Harmless would be not listing my rooms without my name. Luca touched the strap of his bag. I apologize for forward momentum. Mock-ups use real spaces. Help scale. This isn't a board, I said. This is my home. Ben softened. Okay, we overstepped. Can we talk about the authorization? It just lets us coordinate calls. You can revoke any time. I pulled the half sheet from the sleeve. Owner authorization for short-term rental management, I read. Typed name under signature line mine. Margin note, review M Tuesday. Get wet signature. Sophie brightened. M is Marcy. We wanted to go through it with your attorney. Transparent. You plan to present me with a pen, then loop Marcy after, I said. You typed my name without asking. We were excited, Sophie said. We wanted to contribute. You brought suitcases and a shaded June, I said. Two things can be true. You love me and you want to use me. Ben's voice went gentle. Mom, you're making it adversarial. I'm making it factual. I showed the glossy printouts I'd found under their tape measure. Found here. Under junk, Sophie stared. So we wouldn't lose them. Lose them, I echoed, touching a bullet point. Deck just refinished. Who told you? Nobody, Lucas said. It looks new. It is new because I painted it myself, I said. You got that one right by accident. At noon, the doorbell rang. A woman with a camera smiled from the step. Photography for Sea Glass? Parking okay if I... Wrong house, I said. Take a cannoli. Behind me, Luca stared at the floor. Ben cleared his throat. Sophie rearranged the iced coffees as if geometry could rearrange facts. You can stop explaining my confusion, I said. The evidence can speak. Ben tried another door. We're scared for you. Beaches eat money. A calendar could help you breathe. If you wanted to help me breathe, I said, you would have brought a paintbrush last Thursday. Sophie's eyes glistened. That's not fair. What's fair is what's true, I said, and slid a tabbed binder forward. Budget year 1, insurance paid. Emergency fund, receipts by month. I learned margins when braces came due the same spring. Ben looked down. We know you're capable. Good. Then we proceed like I am. I wrote at the top of the authorization in my neat nurse hand. Do not market, schedule, or represent property without owner's written consent. I dated and initialed the corner and clipped it shut. Gaslighting hates ink. We'll step out, Ben said. Give you space. Before you do, I said, clarity. I'm changing the access code today. If you need entry, you ask. No photos, no listings, no estimates unless I request them. We can discuss a family weekend calendar after summer, Sophie nodded. Of course. Ben tried one more angle. Safety cameras. I like neighbors better than lenses, I said. And I breathe easier without surveillance in rooms where I live. Luca finally spoke. I'm sorry, Mrs. Cole, truly. Apology accepted as beginning, I said. Not conclusion. They carried the calendar, the coffees, and their quiet out the door. Sophie hugged me, face pressed to my shoulder like when nightmares chewed her courage. We love you, she said. I know, I said. Love doesn't borrow my porch and call it planning. When the car's second gear faded, I poured their coffees into the sink. I sealed the sleeve and called Marcy. Evidence? She asked. In order, I said. 10 a.m. tomorrow, she replied. Bring everything. I called Carmen next. Talk to me, she said. They tried to make me doubt the facts. That trick gets old, she said. I'll bring my mean reading glasses. I changed the lock code to a number only my hands would remember. Then I walked the property the way a nurse walks a room. Oxygen, lines, exits. The deck rail held firm. The slider latched. A gull heckled. I laughed. At 5, Sophie texted, "We're sorry. Can we restart?" I put the phone face down and wrote in my spiral, "Tuesday noon. Photographer arrived. 07 authorization altered. 114, code changed. Evidence likes tidy columns. Tidy columns make feelings behave." Ben texted at 5:12. "Love you. Please don't shut us out." I scrolled up to Wednesday, 2:04 p.m. "You free this weekend?" "Need to talk contracts." I wrote, "I'll be in touch after I speak with counsel." At dusk, the inlet bell counted the light. I remembered the first Mother's Day after the divorce when they arrived with dandelions, and I told them we were okay, even when Rent said we weren't. That was a lie for softness. I'm done with soft lies. Truth can be kind without pretending to be small. I set out papers for morning. Deed, survey, insurance binder, budget tabs, photos with timestamps, the trip's flyer with a torn tab. I added a blank check and a pen that doesn't skip. I poured water and watched the sky trade blue for rose. Sophie called at 7. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice trembled. "Mom, please." Luca pushed. "I got carried away. We wanted to surprise you with how helpful we can be." Then a practiced sigh. "We'll fix it." I saved the message and wrote, "Voicemail 702. We'll fix it." Fix is useful when you own the thing you broke. This thing is me. Before bed, I opened the dented tea tin where tiny victories live. I slid in a strip from my little printer, the corkboard photo with the wall clock in frame. I wrote in pencil, "The day they tried to rename my porch." Then I set the tin by the salt. The ocean breathed steady. Discovery had knocked with polite knuckles. Gaslighting wore my children's voices for a few uneasy minutes and then fell quiet in the face of ink and timestamps. I set my alarm for 9. The tide turned in the dark, and I slept with the slider cracked. Marcy's office smelled like copier heat and peppermint tea. 10 a.m. sharp, I set my binder down the way a nurse lays a chart. Tabs proud, evidence on top. She read without commentary, pen ticking once when she reached the corkboard photo. "Here's the cure," she said. "We move the house into irrevocable trust with you as sole trustee. Record a memorandum today so a title search warns off cowboys. Add a clause. No short-term rentals, no marketing, no vendors without the trustee's written consent. On incapacity or death, it locks. Successor trustee is not Ben or Sophie." "Carmen," I said. "Perfect," she said. "And we send cease and desist letters to Luca and the brand for unauthorized advertising. Copy the neighborhood association. Contractor notice. No access or work orders unless they come from you. Also a visitor policy. By invitation only," I said. "If you want teeth, add a no contest clause against anyone who challenges these terms." By 10:48 a.m., the trust instrument lay warm on a blotter, my legal name a backbone on the page. I signed without a tremor. At 11:12 a.m., Marcy tapped send on the e-recording. Minutes later, County Recorder received document Nos 2025 U11482 and 2025 U11483. I screenshotted like it was oxygen. "Next," Marcy said, "house rules. We wrote them plain. No listings. No photos or walkthroughs. No vendors without written approval. Stays by invitation only. Access code changed after every visit. Money talks in writing. Help paid with receipts and W-9s. I initialed each line. Footer. Effective immediately, posted on premises. "What about the flyer at Trips?" I asked. "Ask for removal," she said. "Replace it with truth." At noon, I drove to Trips. The corkboard still held Sea Glass Cottage, opening June. I found the manager, a woman with a braid and an easy command of chaos. "That's my house," I said, showing deed photo and recorder receipts. "It's not for rent. Would you post this instead?" The one-pager read, "Private home, not a rental. Please ignore unauthorized ads." She nodded, yanked the tacks, and pinned the new notice. I photographed the swap with the store clock in frame. Back home, I emailed cease and desist letters and taped the certified mail receipts to my spiral. Luca replied, "Understood. All materials pulled." The brand, "Draft deleted." I printed both for a tab labeled Outside Actors. I called the installer. "No work orders will come from anyone but me," I said, and texted the recorded memorandum number. He sent a thumbs up. By 2, Carmen arrived with sandwiches and a yellow pad. "Tell me the plan," she said. "Seal control, document, then one public moment," I said. "Let daylight do the work." "Where?" "Neighborhood Association. Saturday noon at the rec hall." Carmen grinned. "Witnesses and minutes. My favorite courtroom." I emailed the chair. 5 minutes under new business to address unauthorized marketing of my private home? She replied, "You got it." I texted Ben and Sophie. House talk moved to Saturday noon rec hall. Marcy present. Bring questions in writing. No surprises. Ben sent a thumbs up. Sophie, "Thank you. Friday was logistics. I opened a P.O. box, bought a plain sign, private home, no solicitation, no filming. Printed copies of house rules and the recorder receipts." Marcy sent a family boundaries acknowledgement. Not a contract, but a paper they could sign to show they understood. If they refused, that would be data. Saturday came clear and hot enough to wobble the horizon. I wore a blue dress and the thimble on a chain so old competence showed. Carmen drove. At 11:40, the rec hall smelled like chairs and lemon cleaner. Ruth, the association president, hugged me. "We keep records," she said. Ben walked in at 11:51 with Sophie and Luca. Ben's smile worked hard. Sophie's sunglasses were armor. Luca carried a phone. "Mom," Ben said, "we'll keep it calm." "It already is," I said, handing each a packet. House rules, the recorder receipt, agenda with new business highlighted. At noon, Ruth tapped the mic. The room came to attention like a well-trained dog. "New business, Mrs. Cole." I spoke the way I talked to a scared patient. Slow, clear, kind enough to carry truth. "Some of you saw a flyer at Trips or a draft listing. My home is not, and will not be, a short-term rental." I held up the recorder receipts. As of Wednesday at 11:16 a.m., this house is held by a trust that forbids short-term rentals or marketing without the trustee's written consent. That trustee is me. A murmur went around. Boundaries play well in neighborhoods. I set down the letter. Vendors were contacted without my authorization. That's over. If anyone asks to shoot photos, install equipment, or preview my place, say no and call me. Ruth nodded. "We'll put that in the minutes." Ben raised his hand. I nodded. "We made mistakes," he said into the mic. "We tried to help and got ahead of ourselves. We're sorry." Sophie stepped forward. "I love this house because my mom finally gets to breathe." "We won't push." Luca cleared his throat. "All materials removed." "Good," I said. "Then here's the forward plan, on the record." Ruth took copies of Marcy's letter for the minutes. I faced my family. "If you want to stay here, you ask. If you want to help, bring a brush, not a brochure. If you list, schedule, or market my home again without written consent, my attorney will seek injunctive relief and fees. That's not anger. That's clarity." Ruth adjusted her glasses. "Clear enough for the back row." The room's small laugh took the sting out without dulling the point. Carmen lifted a shoebox. "Neighbors, call this the Found Flyers box. If you find a stray ad for Mrs. Cole's address, drop it here and text the time and place." Absurd and effective. 2 men from the marina nodded like finally. A process. "Motion to accept Mrs. Cole's notice and add it to guidelines?" Ruth asked. The eyes sounded like surf. That was the consequence. A bright public line, witnessed and written. Luca stared at his shoes. Sophie squeezed Ben's hand. Ben whispered, "We understand." The microphone didn't catch it. The room did. After adjournment, neighbors drifted over. "Need eyes midweek? Text me." said a woman named June. The installer from Sunday appeared with his wife. We'll keep an ear out, he said. Sorry for the mix-up. Marcy slipped in, lifted 2 fingers, victory or verify. Ruth handed me draft minutes with a note. Placed on record 12:33 p.m. I tucked it into my folder. The plan worked. Competent help, paper with teeth, a witness room. The tide inside me shifted. The old nurse calm returned. Ben approached, softer. Lunch? He asked. Just us? Tuesday, I said. Noon. In writing. He nodded. Sophie looked at the thimble on my chain and smiled a smile. Festival later? She asked, meaning almond horns. We'll see, I said. Earn it. Outside, the sun hit the water so bright it felt like a yes. I drove home with Carmen. On my table, I set the recorder receipts, the minutes draft, and a pen that didn't skip. My phone vibrated. County recorder, recorded. Document knows. 2025, 11482, and 2025, 11483. Time, 12:41 p.m. I printed it and slid it under the clip. The house exhaled when I turned the key. The sign on the door looked stubborn. I liked it. The house felt different once the minutes existed. I set the draft under a glass bowl and made tea. The ocean ran a slow EKG along the sand. I breathed lemon oil, salt, and a new, unshakable kind of quiet. Monday, Marcy slid a tidy stack across her desk. Pour over, Will, she said. Everything funnels to the trust. No contest clause. Successor trustee and health agent, Carmen. Another document. Visitor license for family overnights. Dates. Purpose. Responsibilities. No filming. No posting. No third parties. No key copies. Violations equal immediate ejection and fees. Teeth, I said. Dentures you can bite with, she replied. We notarized under a fern that had seen worse. I paid, tucked the receipt behind the deed, and felt my spine click into place. Tuesday, Ben arrived with Sophie and a plastic tote of brushes. He held his palms up at the door. We read everything. We'll sign. Good, I said, and set the family boundaries acknowledgement on the island. They signed in blue ink. I copied theirs, kept the originals in a sleeve labeled Signatures, Family. Luca? I asked. He's out, Sophie said. We ended it. Her voice had an empty space where certainty used to live. Then fresh page, I said, handing her a brush. Cut in that corner. Ben, roller, 2 coats. They worked and didn't argue. Sweat made family look honest. After the second coat, we ate sandwiches and split an almond horn. Festival. I slid the receipt under the magnet beside the corkboard photo. They left before dusk. No suitcases, a neat row of cleaned brushes. I changed the code anyway. Boundaries are a muscle. They strengthen because you use them, not because someone promises to be gentle. Neighbors checked in. June brought a bundt cake and news. 2 kids asked at trips about rentals, she said. Manager pointed at your notice. They photographed the word private and left. We laughed, then wrote the time, 3:19 p.m. in my spiral. That week I built rituals. Monday, walk the line, locks, latches, rails. Tuesday, ledger, expenses and minutes from any house talk. Wednesday, tide and tea. Thursday, repair or paint. Friday, groceries and one indulgence. Saturday morning, sweep steps and read the trust's first page aloud, quietly, like vows. Sunday, pancakes, even if I burn one while watching the horizon try to teach me patience. Ben called Friday. Can we reserve 2 nights in July, just us? Send the request in writing, I said. He emailed within the hour. July 18th and 19. Purpose family time. No guests. No filming. Chores accepted. Deck scrub and pantry shelf install. I printed, clipped, approved with a firm yes in the margin. I don't believe in punishment dressed as parenting, but I do believe in cost-matching benefit. Sophie stopped by with daisies and an apology letter in her block print. She asked to stay one night in August and offered to deep clean the guest bath and photograph my quilts just for me. "No cloud," she said, holding up her phone like a wild thing she'd learned to handle. "We'll see," I said, underlining will because words can brace a spine if you draw them strong. Marcy's letters did their quiet work. The brand sent a formal apology and confirmed all files were purged. Luca delivered a certified note promising no further contact. I taped both to a page titled, "Outside Actors, Closed." Closing a tab in your life should feel like hanging a clean towel. At the next neighborhood meeting, Ruth read the new guideline. No advertising of private homes without written owner consent. Violations referred to council. The ayes sounded like a broom sweeping sand from a porch. Consequences held. The trust changed more than ownership. It changed posture. Ben stopped assuming I needed an angle explained. Sophie stopped whisper coaching brandable moments. They asked, they scheduled, they brought work clothes. When they forgot, the paper corrected them. We tested July. Ben and I scrubbed the deck while cicadas sawed the afternoon into equal parts. After, he asked if the auto, Ben folder, still lived in my cabinet. "It does," I said, "and it's part of the plan." He looked like a man walking back into a room he'd left messy. "How much?" I brought the folder and a pen. "Balance with interest, minus what you've paid, $1,926. No shame, no speeches. Installments you choose, in writing. If you pay it, you close a loop. If you don't, the loop becomes your story, not mine." He nodded and set up an automatic transfer for the first of each month. Notifications land at 9:03 a.m. I print them and slide them into a sleeve labeled Repairs, Funded. Sophie's August stay ran like a clean program. She texted on arrival, photographed the signed license on the counter, and cleaned the guest bath to a shine that made me almost superstitious. She took quilt pictures with the gentleness of someone photographing a shy animal. When she left, the bed was square, and the note on the table said, "I love you. I am learning. We are learning. I hear my boundaries before the inlet bell reminds me. Guardianship lasts when you say no often and clearly. Revenge, stripped to its bones, is justice that remembers birthdays and rinses the brushes." On the next Mother's Day, I cooked linguine again, clams tasting like the sea had signed the sauce. Ben brought almond horns without prompting and asked where the ledger lived. Sophie asked if she could photograph the steam just for us. We ate on the deck under plain white lights I approved and paid for. The tide climbed the pilings like a child politely asking to be tall. After, I brought out the tea tin and added a strip from my tiny printer. The recorder receipt with 11:16 a.m. circled. Next to it, a copy of Ruth's minutes with adopted underlined twice. Carmen toasted with peppermint tea. "To paper and peace," she said. When the sun slid low, Ben cleared plates without being asked. Sophie swept the steps in long, confident strokes. We stood in the doorway and watched the last light flip the water to mercury. Nobody brought a suitcase. Nobody measured the slider. Nobody said brand. We talked about the geranium that had decided to bloom red like stubborn joy. Later, alone, I checked the door, the latches, the rails. I hung my thimble necklace on its hook. I placed the ledger flat and stacked the day's receipts. Market, bakery, a gallon of exterior paint for touch-ups. The house breathed with me, and something in my ribs, once a hinge, felt not just fixed, but new with better hardware. I turned off the lights. In the blue dark, the trust felt less like armor and more like good architecture. Weight carried in the right places, load paths honest and strong. I opened the slider a finger's width to hear the tide keep its patient promises, then closed it and turned the lock with the quiet finality of a woman who owns her threshold in ink and in practice. If you guys like the video, you will also like these two, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.